And we're live, so yeah. Back from break and yeah, interesting
I
topics
mean,
for today.
it's been a while since we've done one of these, I think.
Yeah, December.
Uh,
It's February now.
seriously? Oh, time flies.
Yeah, when
Time
life's
flies.
busy.
Yeah, before time off. It's
Yeah.
funny thinking about time when you work on a farm.
Mm,
It's like the 4 year is broken up into real seasons, and that like actually matter. So yeah, back in December was a while ago.
yeah. It's interesting the way the year is broken up in different systems. Of course, it's all like you're dividing up a continuous line, so the lines are somewhat arbitrary. But I think there are six Maori seasons. Like they add a height of summer and depth of winter season.
Oh, like solstice, and okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
Actually,
not such a bad idea because like that 1 month in the middle of summer, like we've just passed that. The last 3 weeks have just been like bone dry
hmm,
and baking, and it's just been like dead grass everywhere.
yeah.
And we had a week of straight rain, which was amazing, and now we got grass again. And it's starting to calm down. We're getting colder days again. Like that. I
Yeah.
suppose that's something we could talk about. Keep walking down the rabbit hole of like the set your link today of like the long time scale
Oh yeah.
patterns of the. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I've been down that rabbit hole for the last few days.
I've been starting to. I've watched probably the first half hour of that podcast. Joe Rogan talking to some people about deep time. Um, but yeah,
First half hour, okay. It hasn't even really started.
yeah. But it's. Oh, I've been thinking. Like, I think it was last time we were talking about how when you look back at history, uh, like Cold War, if you think about what it was actually like to live there, and you look at like there was a thing I saw. They had video of kids talking about the future, and the kids were talking. Well, if I grow up, I'd like to do this.
Yeah. I don't know, it's starting to feel that way a little bit again. Like I don't know if I've met almost anyone from my generation, from our generation, I suppose, who is like, we're fine. Things are just gonna go great. We're just gonna have a good life. And it's like, no, everyone's like, oh,
But there's a big difference between this is the thing, this is the end, this is the worst thing ever, and oh yeah, it's like that again.
yeah. It's like, there are so many things that could be the end worst thing ever, and we're all just like, well, that could happen, and that could happen, and so could that, and that'd be great.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's just a result of living on the internet. Is like, holy shit, we know nothing,
Mm.
and this world is like way more dangerous than we thought.
Yeah, like
Right?
the stuff that they were talking about on that podcast about like, oh, there was this big crater they found in Antarctica, like 400 kilometers across or something, which that was a mass
Yeah.
extinction at some point, and then the various Younger Dryas things like, oh, there was a big crater they found in the Indian Ocean that it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that might have been the source of the Noah's Ark myths because and the various flood myths of many cultures, like most cultures around the world, and
Then they get into the magnetic poles issue, which
oh,
is
there's a
I
guy.
think that's the real one for me. That one's insane.
There's a few I've heard about that one that seem oh far fetched. Of course, there's going to be some that go too far, but there was one where he was saying that the Earth's core was going to stop spinning, and that would cause the Earth's crust
Mm.
to sort of shift around suddenly, so the pole was somewhere else, so that the everything on
Yeah.
the surface would be jolted by the shift, and it's like physics.
What I get out of that is that it less of a jolt and more of a halt, and that things like the Earth's waters and the winds at the equator would just carry on with their
Hmm.
momentum. So everything else stayed relative, which is
Yeah, but like
about as terrifying as you can imagine.
the
Um,
force to trigger that, it's like there's
it's the core magnetic core flipping, and apparently it does it in cycles, and it's done it like 100 times already that we've recorded. Not while we're around.
Yeah.
No, but
The
like apparently did Atlantis and all of that,
mm,
which is why the mountains around that site there's like salt at 2 miles above sea level,
mm.
and people are like, oh, it can't be because there wasn't sea level there. Like, well, it was that week, just
Yeah.
that week.
Yeah,
So
I put
yeah, I don't
that
know.
at the sort of further end of the bell curve to my mind. It's like, um, in the sense of the Earth not just changing over time or there being sudden cataclysms, but the whole Earth shifting like that. It's like, okay, Newton's
Yeah,
laws. It's
apparently
like
it's
it's not going to shift on its own.
meant to happen within a period of like 8 hours, something stupid like that. And okay, seeing as we're on that topic, one of the things I picked up from that show, I don't want to just regurgitate everything. It's just I don't know on the top of the mind. We'll go talk about like where we were and where we left off and why we had a break and all of that. The what is it? The poles migrate
Yeah.
every year. Um, and I think when they discovered that they were migrating was like, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, something like that. I don't remember exactly, and it was migrating at like 10 meters a year, or
Geographic
10
or
kilometers.
magnetic pole?
Magnetic.
Mm.
Magnetic. It was at like, I think it was like 10 kilometers a year migration, and now it's 40, and it's accelerating, which is, super comforting.
Mm.
But yeah, we instead of regurgitating all that shit from the podcast, one of the big things I took away is that we're so unbelievably vulnerable. And the sort of, I don't know what you call it, the underground of YouTube for forever, or like the happy videos and the alternative histories and stuff before that became popular was always on the point of there are really big cycles that happen in the Earth's makeup. Nature is not stable at all. And the swings in that pendulum are probably going to kill us if we don't like look out for them because they have before, like many times.
I think the swings in that pendulum will. The people who are standing in the wrong place relative to the pendulum will be splattered by it, but there'll be some people who end up sitting pretty. Not many, but the
Yes.
very lucky.
Yeah, but like if it's going to be a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a percent of humanity that survives, I don't want to be the one that's. I don't want to be clawing my way back from that because it's not going to be like a small group of wise settlers made it through and rebuilt society. No, it's going to be like marauders and the most violent, aggressive people that survive, and then it's going to be another 6 to 12,000 years of them being civilized through processes.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll try and mute
and
myself
then
when I need to cough.
finally rebuilding themselves up to a place where things can be stable and they can realize this pattern again, and then it's just straight again.
There was
For me, it just puts into perspective like some of the Ice Age stuff as well on top of all of this, the meteor stuff, the Younger Dryas stuff on top of all of this, and then you've got the shifts in the orbit, shifts in the magnetic field, all of these things that could just destroy our way of life instantly. And and we're sitting here arguing about it getting like 2 degrees warmer over the next century. If we were going to be influencing the environment in any way, fucking hell, I hope we make it warmer. Because, like, the Earth has, from what it looks like to me, been cold for most of its history. And that would really suck to be a part of. I'm not interested in that. I want more rain and more heat and more trees, please. Not the other side of that.
My understanding of the long-term trend, and of course there's a great deal of noise on top of this long-term trend, but if you look back at the distant history, my understanding of what they think it was hotter, and I like the Gaia theory explanation for this. Gaia theory, in the sense of the Earth's climatic system with life as part of that system, acts like a self regulating organism. And as the sun gets older, it gets brighter, because we know that's how
Mm.
stars of this type age based on astronomy. And so as it gets brighter, the balancing system of the global ecosystem, just like an air conditioner turning up as the day gets hotter, it ends up keeping the Earth cooler. And so the carbon dioxide concentration has been trending down over the millions, millennia, millions of years. It's been gradually trending down as that thermostat's coming down lower. So during the ice age, it was getting to the point where plants were on the edge of being able to photosynthesize. They couldn't pull it much lower, and so new forms of photosynthesis were developing, like C4, which is what grass uses, where broadleaf plants use a different, like C3 photosynthesis, different chemically, but it can't use as
Yeah.
low carbon dioxide levels. And that during the ice age, that was preferable for the current time of the planet, because it exposed the continental shelves, so you had much more land area exposed for vegetation. And the you've got the ice caps up top, of course, they're just sitting there not doing much. But then um, the tropics don't stay that cold. Like, that's where the stuff happens. Like, you don't stay where we are in the ice age. This is all ice. You wouldn't be here. You'd either leave or die. But the tropical areas, like, you look at Indonesia, you look at the continental shelves off every continent, like vast areas exposed. Um, Weather patterns shift, deserts shift, whatever. So you'd have to find the right place to live. But there will be places that work. Like, make the Earth 2-3 degrees warmer. Siberia might be quite nice. It's
Mm.
yeah. It's not all bad or all good. It's like, it's messy.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the idea of it being a self-regulating system, I don't think I buy that one. I think it's far too chaotic and over too long of timescales to be self-regulating. I think things just adapt. I don't think it's like I mean, I guess you could call it that. In the way that it isn't a runaway effect in either direction. But I could see a scenario where things got too cold and couldn't come back, life-wise.
My understanding was that it nearly got to that point during the start of life. So when photosynthesis first emerged, the Earth was really hot, like enormous CO2 levels. There was no oxygen because photosynthesis wasn't there yet. And then photosynthesis got going, and it really got going. So that was the first development of that, and it was releasing this terrible toxin for oxygen into the atmosphere and pulling the CO2 levels down. But the sun wasn't as bright then, and it pulled the CO2 levels down to the point where everything froze, like Snowball
Yeah,
Earth.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
Which is what I think the more CO2 is bad thing is kind of I don't know. I have an issue with that. I don't want to spend the whole thing on this. We're sort of just gone off on a side topic.
yeah, it's the change
We
that
didn't
gets
have
you. It's like traveling fast isn't a problem, it's the sudden stop that gets you. It's the
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so being hot isn't a problem, being cold isn't a problem, going quickly from one to the other in either direction is a problem.
I think being cold's a problem. Like, the lack of food
In that sense, yeah,
and
if you're in that environment, yeah. But at the same time,
well, just
if you're in a rainforest and suddenly the rain stops and then it turns to a desert, it's not very pretty either.
no. That's why I like it when it gets warmer and not colder.
Yeah, but desert, hot.
No, no. Desert is a result of low moisture, not of high heat, and
True.
you get that from air temperatures in cold climates, not hot. In hot environments, you get moisture trapping, and deserts can regrow.
Mm.
Like in a hot environment, in a high CO2 environment, trees can grow in more arid conditions, which is why some deserts over the world, as our CO2 comes up, are actually being reforested on their own,
Yeah.
because they can now, what is it? They can photosynthesize without using without opening up their pores to so much dehydration. I don't know. I don't know it very well, but as far as I'm aware, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Like half of Iceland's been taken over by a weed for that reason, which is
Yeah.
great.
Lupin.
Greenland.
Yeah. Nitrogen fixing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. That stuff's awesome. Little things like that, and with a little bit of help from us, we could, terraform our own Earth into ways that would be actually useful.
Yeah, it's like you talked
Which
about.
I'm all for.
Mm.
This is one of the things that bothers me about the nature worship stuff. It's like, the Earth is pristine and perfect without us. We cannot modify it in any way, especially any way that suits our needs. And what would be really great is if that we could leave it alone as much as possible and just go and live in a hole somewhere. And I'm not for that.
I don't think it's nature worship.
I think it is.
It's as much anti-worship of humans as it is worship of nature. It's the focus on the humans in anything we do bad, nature good. But there's...
Yeah, I see that as the same thing, to be entirely fair.
Okay, so...
That's my point of view for those who put nature as the highest ideal.
Hmm.
Because what comes second?
Okay, I want to lay out what the words nature worship mean to me, because
we're going to go into our polytheism, monotheism debate, aren't we? We still haven't done that, so maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to clobber you with stuff when you're not feeling 100% up to it, although maybe you can get a lump and then think about it and then come back at me later.
Good do. I feel alright now that I've stood up.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I can't sit down or fall asleep. That's my life.
You must be working hard.
It's a busy job. Cows need to be fed and all kinds of things. There's lots to do.
Yep. Yeah. Because to me, it's not like... Humans' ideal relationship with nature is not a no-humans relationship. That's not a relationship. That's missing the point. It's about...
Agreed.
Permaculture has some good things to do with this that I really like. Like the idea of we are the weeds that can heal the earth, in the sense of we have great power to act through conscious thought. This can be either destructive or constructive.
What are you up to? Are you waiting for tea? What is this? Okay. Some kind of hot, cakey treat.
Nice.
Oh, that smells really good. Oh, it's just too hot. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not against nature. I'm actually a rather big... I like nature quite a lot, which is why I don't live in a city, because I hate cities, because there's no nature there. As far as I'm concerned, our role is to be stewards. We look at the world, we look at the different animals, the different plants, and what roles that they could serve to reshape the world in the way that we think is good. And I think that we have a duty to do that. Not just to protect things the way they were and assume that things never change and try and hold it in stasis, but to take active action to reshape things for the better. Like trying to, reforest a desert. That kind of thing. You can go, whatever scorpion lives there might die, and it's endangered. I don't care about a scorpion. That's a massive amount of land that could be reforested into, a full rainforest, a beautiful jungle, or anything like that. Things can be changed, and you can change them for the better. And yeah, there's probably a cost for that, but I feel like that's our job, because the only other alternative is try and keep things the way they always were and have no input at all, or just not care about it and roll over it for whatever benefit personally. The kind of things that environmentalists complain about, like just chopping down trees because you want the farmland or whatever in South America, the Amazon. Is that still going on? I remember hearing something about that changing.
I don't think it stopped. The focus moved to Ukraine, but they're still chopping things
Yeah,
down.
let's not go.
Yeah, it's like there's a piece which I'm just wondering where to approach this from. Then on the way there, we'll get totally derailed and not end up where I'm thinking. But
Well, you could lay out your thought or proposition and then like step back and try and
mm,
work towards it.
we always talk about nature as though it is a thing, as though it is stuff, as though it is a thing we do things to, rather than an active participant in a relationship which must be negotiated with. And
Mm,
this is where we get
yes.
into metaphysics and the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
balance of
I'm human
axis.
supremacist.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm human supremacist, but I definitely agree that we're the most able to act. We're in the top tier of conscious beings living in the world. That's definitely clear to me. But to go uh, a step beyond what is normally accepted, if you look at what people actually experience, for example, no, that's possibly a too far off example to start with. The world that we experience doesn't match the way we're told that it is.
Uh,
In a metaphysical
yes.
sense.
You could say that about every sense. We've been like nothing but lied to about everything.
So I'm specifically thinking about the way that we talk about or hear about the world as, in terms of history, there was superstition and all these nonsense beliefs, and now we're enlightened and have the age of reason, and so we know better now. And if you just take a step back and say, okay, how well does that actually describe the way people act? Um, People still go to church and believe in gods, and like if you like, it's couched in uh, materialist rationalist terms these days, but if you step back and look at what people experience, I'm not talking every single person, but it's like experiences still occur that don't fit that mold of materialist rationalist. And my own personal experiences definitely, it's like, yeah, there's more. It's like, this exists, yes. I'm sitting in a chair, yes, I can't deny that, but at the same time, there is more, and I can only disregard it if I hand wave it away with a non complete explanation.
yeah, I think. I'm gonna take that. I'm trying to square it with an idea of mine, which is like no one is more religious than an atheist.
Yeah.
Those people, man, they just I won't stop hitting that nail. You know.
It's the same pattern with different words.
Oh, it's more extreme
Mm.
because they've taken the legs out from under them and they're just flailing about it. Yeah. No one thinks that way. Like this is the one thing I really got from actually reading Peterson's works, not just like his, speeches and all of that, like his legit book, his one that he wrote like 35 years ago or whatever. um, Everyone views the world through a story, and that story has a religious structure. And it doesn't matter how much you say you don't believe, it's like you do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what that story is. And it can be broken and cause you an awful lot of pain, or it could be not. All of the characters could be atheist characters, but it's still a religious structure. Like there's no way of getting around that. That's who we are. We're story creatures.
that passion is so built into our psyche that it's more
Yeah.
real than physical.
Yeah, it's not going away.
Yeah.
Like, not even a little bit.
And
Which is
then-
why my joke about, atheists being the most religious is on the money. Because, they'll swear up and down how they're not, but, they'll adhere to the authority just off the bat. And they've taken out the unknown highest ideal out of their highest ideal and just replaced it with something known. It's like, the greatest thing in the universe is not something that I don't know or understand. It's something that I do. And that just instantly tyrant off the bat. Or worship of one. And there's which is why they keep killing millions of people. I really am all over the place today. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's no, I okay. I'm gonna backtrack a couple steps because you mentioned viewing us as a part. I fundamentally believe that we are apart from nature. Like, yes, we live
a part as a
in
separate or a part of, because same word.
No, apart, like as separate. We are not what nature is, because nature's not conscious. No, not in the same way. Like, obviously, animals have some awareness. That's not my point.
Dolphins arguably similar tier to us in that sense.
What was that?
Dolphins and there are some animals who seem very close.
Maybe. Not really. But they can't act. So even if they were, we don't know that because they can't change their environment. So it's functionally useless. Like, my point of us being apart is that we are able to change the environment and we can be somewhat aware of how our actions will change the environment. And that makes us not a part of the environment, just off the bat.
I disagree
because
we cannot I haven't said yet.
Pardon?
I disagree because of things I haven't said yet. There's more to the structure as it exists in my conception that I haven't said yet. I agree with what you're saying from your perspective. Yes, there's more.
I think this is really interesting because I was raised... It's quite funny. Like, I think I come across as very, like, fundamentalist or... Well, I certainly hope not because I'm not that at all. But, I mean... what would you say? Rigid, conservative, whatever. It's like I was raised in your school of thought and believed that, like, most of my life. I don't know, maybe it's having a family or growing older or something, or interested in finding out. I see us as an actor not against. That's not right. We live in it. We have a dynamic with it, but we can act on it to change it. And though it may act on us, it doesn't do so consciously. And for that reason, it's like an actor in a stage. I can't, like, I have a very hard time trying to put them in the same category. RCS is fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And then the most comfortable way. Like, I'm just going to go off topic here, but we had a conversation last night, my wife and I thought it kind of blew my mind a little bit. We were talking about consciousness and its meaning, and we were also talking about what we talked about earlier with the cataclysms and, like, how unbelievably hostile the universe is to life. Just trying to kill us, like, constantly, Take all the statements I've ever made about nature trying to kill us and just, like, times infinity. It really doesn't like us. It's like infinite things that could go wrong at any second and just vaporize the whole earth and be gone.
But it doesn't.
Yeah, well,
not all the way.
Sometimes it's happened a few times. Like, not 100% death, but, like, it's so close to it that it's almost, Yeah.
Weak anthropocentric principle was still here, so it hasn't gone that far bad.
Well, yeah, but my point again was, like, the atheist community can't shut up about the Fermi paradox as well. because they, at the same time as saying that there must be life everywhere in the universe, they emphatically deny that there's any evidence or anything like that, and that there's nothing else out there that we've seen, which is interesting. Like, okay, yeah, they can't accept any kind of information that's outside of the establishment power hierarchy, because they put that at the highest state, because they don't believe in the unknown anymore. Oh, look, tyrants again. But putting all that aside, like, if we take that as face value of, okay, there's no contact, there's no evidence, there's nothing like that, we're alone. We look up at the stars and it's just like empty. There's no life out there. It could very well be that the universe is so inhospitable to life that we're the only conscious creatures that ever existed currently. It is possible. I don't know how well weigh that probability. There's way too many unknowns. But if that is the case, how significant does that make human consciousness as compared to everything else in the universe? We live in a world that's just been slammed again and again and again by not just like species killing events, but near global extinction events, just repeatedly, consistently, as like every other planet in the entire universe goes through this as well, by the looks of things. And as far as I'm aware, we're pretty late in the game as far as the universe goes. Like, we're getting on the outer edge of it. We don't know what's out there. And if we go on the assumption that nothing's out there, that makes what's happening here with us pretty damn important. The only conscious things, self-aware, the way that we are in all of existence, potentially. Like, I'm not going to make a claim, but it was just a thought exercise that we ran through last night, and it really strikes me deeply as even if it's not true, to indicate the significance of our tiny, insignificant existence, as it's always quoted. Like, we put a whole hell of a lot of meaning into what's going on here, as mad and chaotic as it is. And it could all end tomorrow and we'd never see it coming. It's a very strange universe. I don't know where to go from here, but it's something that we talked about last night, and it seems, I don't know, there's something to that thought experiment that I don't think the average modern person puts together, in having both of those things fed to them, of, nothing is meaningful, and we're all, insignificant specks in the corner of nowhere, and there's likely life everywhere. But at the same time, we've never seen anything, and anyone who claims otherwise is a lunatic. So, I don't know.
I'm having trouble reaching the same emotional place relative to that concept as you, because I look at it and it's... my mental map has a big chunk that one is missing, and when I take that view and add it and look at it through my mental map, it's a very different colour.
Metaphysical?
Yes.
Yeah, I left that out on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't believe what I just stated, but I think it's an interesting thing for those who are completely atheistic and materialistic. It's like, okay, sure, given everything that you say you believe, if you actually did, I feel like that would make it more meaningful, not less.
It's a really, really useful thing to be able to take an argument that you don't fundamentally believe in and follow it through logically to see to its conclusion. So, okay, so you think this, well, then doesn't that mean
on top of that, to experience the emotional reaction as if you did believe it, I think that's really key. Like, we live in a world where people are ruled by their emotions to a lot of degree, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's actually really good. even though, the conservatives won't shut up about it. It's like, no, it's actually, you want people in touch with their emotions. Otherwise you get, robots that massacre people for numbers.
It's almost
But
like
not, yeah.
it's almost
Sorry.
like if you have okay, there's emotions and there's instincts, which are arguably more fundamental, less developed than emotions. But once you understand your instincts and your drives, you can psych yourself up ready for going for a long run. You can um, calm yourself down. You can. It's not that you outgrow the use of them or that they become useless. It's that, okay, they are a part of me. It's like learning, here's a girl I'm attracted to. Yeah, if I feed that impulse to be with her, then this will result in this sort of thing. If I sort of give it a little bit, but not too much. Like, okay, yes, there's some hope, but I don't want to go charging in and cause problems, or sort of stamping on it and trying to say, no, I don't want to feel that way, and then it comes out some other way because emotions or those deep drives are not something that you can control. It's like the emotions I think are similar, and the way you're describing using emotions is very similar to I understand it. It's not something I move beyond, it's something I now use constructively instead of merely being pushed around by.
And I think on top of that, I think I mentioned this before, the use of them as markers for what as markers for emerging knowledge from the unconscious. That's why I wanted to add it on. It's like, okay, you run through this thought experiment about what someone else might think, and then you allow yourself to feel the emotional reaction of being that person, and then that allows you to explore down into the unknown and bring up something useful. Like if you actually walk through it, you can explore through that and find, like the underlying issue, the underlying fear or anxiety or whatever it is. And you can bring that up and make it conscious. And if you're having like an argument with someone, you can then give that to them and go, this is actually what I think might be going on. And it's like you've just gone straight under everything. Not about winning an argument, but actually about helping the other person with whom you disagree to understand themselves better. Because it's really difficult to do, and almost no one can do it. But if you can master that, then you can do it for other people if you put yourself in their shoes. And like with my wife, amazing example. In general, I'm going to refrain from talking about her in these shows, but I think it's important. Try to be as vague as I can. It has been incredibly useful to be able to do that, to help her understand herself in order to make change. Because you can't make change on who you are if you don't understand your underlying unconscious motivations. And like I said, it's really hard to learn how to do that. And you sort of have to be in a good mental state. You sort of have to be put together already before you can even start to learn that. And if you're that way, that's not going to happen, and you just get worse.
I think growth in a positive way can happen without it, but it's slow grinding, being slammed in the head by clue by fours until you get an inch of realization, as opposed to, oh, and then you take a sort of a step forward and, or at least see where the step is, so you could have the potential to move in that way, and then you get hit by a clue by four. And yeah, taking that step's less difficult than putting myself through that again.
I think it's also, if you don't have that process, or anyone in your life that's got that process with you, it's really just a game of luck. Like, if you're in a bad state and you don't have that kind of process, you just, what's the quote? You'll just run, head forth into brick walls constantly. And it's like, okay, maybe you might learn from that. Maybe. Maybe you won't. And that's just pure gamble. And for someone you care about, it's like you can't just let that slide. But, some people can't what's the other thing? You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. Like, I've left someone behind who was a big part of my life, because I didn't want to get better. And it's like, you know, they're clearly destroying their life and probably still are. I don't speak to them anymore. And, you know, they were very manipulative and doing everything they can to get help from other people. But they didn't actually want help. They just wanted to be, you know, not have to do anything ever, you know, to get the support without doing any work, to get the help without taking on the responsibility of acting on it. Which is, but that's psychopathy. That's being parasitical. And it's important to recognize those people and cut them out of your life, because they will drain you of everything.
I feel like that sort of personality is it's in some senses a necessary dead end to explore, because if you don't understand it's like, from acting completely unconsciously, that's a glimmer of consciousness but not complete understanding of it. It's like, so I can manipulate things. I don't just have to be at the whim of the situation. I can manipulate the situation to be what I want. And then moving through beyond that to, okay, the situation bites back. I need to cooperate, and it's a partnership with what I experience.
I'd have an issue with that framing, because it sort of makes it sound like the person who is behaving in that way is doing it because they don't know better. And I would not agree with that at all. Like, I don't think it's an undeveloped person who's like hasn't learned better. I think it's someone who's like deeply bitter and cynical about existence and just doesn't care. Like, knows full well that what they're doing is harming other people and that they could be picking themselves up and doing better, and is doing it on purpose to extract as much selfish desires, I guess, whatever it is that they want out.
I'm not suggesting that such a person doesn't understand that they're hurting other people. I'm suggesting that such a person hasn't realised that hurts them just as much as the other people. That by playing that zero-sum game, eventually they lose.
Maybe. But at the same time, I often find people like that deeply hate themselves. And they're not out for their own best interest in the long run, because they don't think they're going to be around that long.
It's a dead end.
Yeah, and they know that.
Yeah. So I feel like this links into like a lot of metaphysics, in the sense of spiritual philosophy, leaps off from the idea of death is not the end. And I haven't checked the numbers on this, but I get the impression that the majority view worldwide is reincarnation. And
I think most of the world is still religious.
Yeah,
mostly.
Yeah. In the sense of, like, Hindu believes in reincarnation. It's a common belief in, well, can't speak to many tribes, but my impression is that in the more developed spiritual traditions, of course there are the monotheistic ones where it's a single path from creation to either heaven or hell, but
Put an asterisk on that. Something I've learned about studying Christianity is that it is actually a reincarnation motif. It's not like your spirit goes elsewhere. There's an emphasis on the body being brought back as well. Not quite reincarnation else, but like reanimation, perhaps rebirth.
Manifestation in a new place.
Yeah. Yeah. But your body comes too. It's not a spirit without the body kind of philosophy. it is very much that like your body is part of your spirit and they cannot be separated. So when you are reborn,
The
you are
spiritual
reborn
body. Because the physical
with your
body
body.
obviously
And
stays.
no,
Mm.
no, I don't understand it. I'm gonna be off the bat. I don't understand it. I actually know. Well, I know quite a bit about. Yeah, it's such a hard thing with religious topics to like claim that I know any amount of it. It's like I don't. I
Yeah.
really don't, because it's like an infinitely deep well. But I would say I know more than the average Christian about some. No, even then I can't say that. I can't say that. It's about some things. It's what is it? It's a sea so wide that it doesn't matter how big my radius is. It doesn't mean it's going to overlap with everyone else's.
Yeah.
Like this. Um.
Because if we take that idea of death is not the end, that implies a greater structure to existence. And there are a few things that we can look at to ask that question. Um, does there appear to be a structure? Um, like, rather than saying, is there a higher power? It's like, well, does it look like there's a structure to reality? And there appears to be a structure in many ways. Another one, what do people experience? And individual experience in the almost anecdotal sense is very much discarded in modern materialist philosophy, but I think that's a failing because an individual person can experience something and that's an individual experience. It's not a data sample. It's not someone went and stuck a thermometer in something. It's a person experienced something and they encountered something that's not necessarily what anyone else encountered, but you look at it and say, okay, that's interesting. You get another one, okay, that's interesting. And if these were, as is often hand-wavingly said, mere imagination, then you'd expect there to be as much variety as a fantasy novel shelf. And there's an element of that, certainly.
Yeah, they line up far too much. Like, okay, you could probably even make the reductionist argument that it's all relatively similar because we all have relatively similar brain structures, and then when it gets perverted out of the way, it all gets perverted out in the same kind of way. But I think that's kind of pointless.
It's a hand wavy explanation. It's like you're waving that explanation.
This is my big problem with science. The thing that I really hate about it is that besides the establishment nature of it, swears all day and long that it's all about like discovering new truth and researching new things, but it's set up to be a gatekeeping organization. Anyone with a new idea gets shoved out of the way. I just want to make the point that like I'm really disappointed that the scientific community decided to follow the philosophy of people like Edison and not Tesla. Because like he was on the edge of knowledge and he was playing with the non-physical phenomenon and getting real results. And it's like they just cannot fucking talk about him for that reason. Terrifies them. And it's very clear, it's like, okay, there is this plane of material reality and you can make great advancements by experimenting with it. But I think the other thing is funny is that scientists has this argument of like there is nothing beyond this material existence, and therefore we should make no experiments to test anything other than material existence.
Yeah. How would we test this assumption?
What's the problem with like trying to test? What's the problem with applying the scientific method to non-physical phenomena?
It's the difference between science as method or science as a process and science as a product. Like we have the product of the current scientific dictums, and we have the process of, that's funny. Let me try and figure something out. Okay, I think it's this. Let me test it. Okay, that didn't work. Let me try again.
I don't know if it's really have the process, though. Like as far as I can see, the scientific process is just dead.
To a large degree, currently, yes.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of like some YouTubers, which is kind of hilarious. That like the whole Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson thing. It's like, a journalist and that other guy, I forget what his name is. That was like what is he? Yeah, a journalist, and then an ex-Navy SEAL who worked for war are just like, they are the archaeologists now, and no one listens to the entire field of archaeology. They can wear all the suits they like and go to dinner parties, and they get like maybe 1,000 or whatever. No one cares. And it's like these guys are getting millions and millions. They got Netflix documentaries. Everyone's like, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, if you want to look at what people really believe, look at what supports more livelihoods. Like, you have how many astronomers and how many astrologers? Like 10 times as many astrologers making a living as
Yeah,
astronomers. It's like, okay, what do people actually believe here?
yeah. It's action. It's not stated belief.
Yeah.
That's 100% the case. And I'm not like, just to say off the bat, just because a lot of people believe a thing doesn't mean it's right.
True.
That's fair share. You can't, you can't democratize science because people will just vote for the thing that works for them. But
at the same
at the
time,
same time, it's like there's a certain amount of the internet is like the ultimate peer review. What it should be, not a gatekeeping organization that says, no, you're not allowed to publish this because you disagree with us. It's like all of humanity, and someone's like, I have a theory, and everyone in humanity looks at them and goes, you're stupid, or actually that works. Okay, there you go.
yeah, look at the people that get shouted down. They've got the interesting things to say.
Yeah, for sure. But at the other time, it's like, the flat earth people or whatever. I think that the internet has sort of proven that point pretty hard. Just not even a chance. But at the same time, it's like the real scientific research going on in certain fields is like, that is not happening in establishments. Not even close. This is the thing that terrifies me about where we are in the world, is that I can't think of a profession off the top of my head that isn't required to lie to the people who come to it for services. Except maybe plumbers, people like that, maybe. Yeah, your real hard trades, they're still relatively, but they're not allowed to speak out about anything political or get fired. So, there's that too. But it's like your doctors are required to lie to you. Your lawyers are required to lie to you. Your counselors can't help you anymore. It's like you have a crisis and you're fucked. You go to your lawyer and you're like, I'm concerned about this, and they just go, if I say anything, I'll lose my license. Same with your doctor. You go to them, I have a concern about this thing, and they'll just look at you and go, I will parrot the government line, or I will be losing my license. And they will. They're terrified. And it's everything. That's why you have the same kind of like ideological messaging showing up everywhere all at once. There's regulatory interference with what are they? Overseas they're called governing boards, I think. Like internal industry regulation. The best example I can think of that people would understand would be like the bar for lawyers.
Yeah.
Like they regulate that field. And as far as I can tell, most people are lying now, are required to lie or won't speak up. And that's like, okay, we're like 3 years from dictator takeover. It was just attempted, as far as I can tell. And it's no one really saw that coming. Well, some of us did. Most people didn't see that coming. And then it happened, and everyone's like, fuck, that just happened. And I'm not allowed to question it or complain about it. Or I'll get, shunned something.
Yeah, I feel like that Nah.
Not that I'm some virtuous person who's, shouting at the street corner.
Yeah.
Don't say
It's
shit either. I'm no better, except for this, which is why I'm doing this. Excuse my unprofessionalism. It's really nice.
Who said we were professionals?
I don't want to be. I don't
Yeah.
want to be. We're ever remotely successful. I don't want to be sitting in a suit and tie like Peterson, man. I want to be like doing what Joe Rogan does, just like talk shit.
The systems that work are being built now, like this, like Joe Rogan, like people building a food forest because they like to, and it's like there are enough people just going out and doing it because if that thing that doesn't work, I'm gonna go do something that does, and of course
Oh,
it's not.
off the bat, I got to tell you, thank God, you should thank God, and everyone in cities should thank God that farmers don't listen to the government. I can tell you for a fact, with every single farm in New Zealand, with the exception of mine, of course, because we're law-abiding citizens, I would never say otherwise. There's a whole bunch of regulations placed on us, and if we followed them, you wouldn't have food. It's not that it's getting so bad that we might not be able to do it now. It's like it's been that way for a long time. If we followed them, it wouldn't happen for you. Sorry. And now it's getting to the point where it is so bad that we can't even like cover it anymore. So that's why the protests are happening. But that's one of the few things where the farmers will lie to the industry regulators to pass the tests so that they can keep making food for everyone. And then the second that they leave, they're like, right, fuck that shit. We're not doing that. We're going to actually like make sure that we produce something here. And if they didn't do that, I can tell you, like, there'd be like, I don't know, 30 to 40% less food on the shelf everywhere. And that's already the state that it is. And the farmers don't lie to each other.
Yeah, like there's
I don't think
egg shortage that's
public.
going on at the moment, and I wonder
What was that, sorry?
the egg shortage that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I saw something about that. I don't know, what is that? I haven't been paying attention yet.
Sure how bad it is in New Zealand relative to the rest of the world. I've heard that the issue in New Zealand was that they were working on outlawing battery hens, and then the big supermarket chains decided they wouldn't take colony eggs as well, where it's still or was it barn? But they're moving towards free range basically, and something like 2/3 of the egg producers have had the rug swept out from underneath them, and like some of them will get back on their feet, but it's like, hang on a minute, how long is this going to get back to where it was?
Well, yeah, this is what happens when you try and make centrally planned economic decisions. You know, it's just like the energy thing. We don't need to use the bad thing because there's a better thing, so use the better thing. And then people are like, but it costs more money. Fuck you, do it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe people bought the cheap cage-laid eggs or whatever because they were cheaper and they're poor. Maybe, just maybe. Maybe they're asking, but I doubt it. Because, like, I'm not, super concerned about that kind of thing. But if I'm at the supermarket and I buy a cage-laid eggs or whatever, I do feel pretty shit about it. I'm like, yeah, this isn't good. I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe it's like $2 more to get the pre-lunch meal. I should probably,
Yeah.
That's like
that's the barn ones.
It's like those who have the choice and the resources to prioritize something other than eating, do so. Which is why the Western world is the most green of any of the places, because we're the richest.
Yeah.
It's off the bat. I saw a great video, a speech that Russian guy gave. I don't remember who it was. But it's the same argument that's everywhere about the climate stuff. It's like it's not going to be decided in our country. It's going to be decided by the poorest people in the world. And you don't get to tell the poorest people in the world that they are not allowed to become rich. You don't get to tell them that they have to stay poor and starving. You know, if they want to, heat their homes with something other than burning shit and, make sure their kids don't die from malnutrition, they have every right to do that. And we shouldn't be telling them not to, especially because they're all like other races, which is kind of interesting for the people who bang the racist drum constantly. They're like, yeah, let's starve all the Indians. And no, that's really bad. That's not going to go well in history.
If you want to make the world better, make it better for the ones at the bottom. And
damn right.
Like, it's a really interesting thing that I'm not quite sure. I don't have a good model to describe why I think this particular way, but I've for a long time been interested in solutions to problems in the third world from the perspective of I might need that in the future.
What, for the first world?
Yeah, in the sense of if yeah, actually that does make sense. We can make the third world better and at the same time make us more resilient. Like I want to have a biogas system that runs off the sewage and food waste from my kitchen so that it produces methane that I can use for cooking, and have a woodlot for fuel, have like
as long as you choose it.
As long as I choose it.
Or, yeah.
As in choose to actually go through with it, or?
As in it's not forced upon you, or the other option isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
No, I agree. I actually agree with you that these technologies are the most important. So we can kickstart the poorest people in the world, make sure that they're not starving and, doing air pollution inside the home. What do you call that? Contaminants?
Yeah.
Like burning in open fires and choking on the stuff, which is like 150 million people die from that every year or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Malnutrition, clean water, heating the homes, things like that. And yeah, if we could make these really efficient redundancy systems that we could possibly use in the West, that'd be great. But I don't think we should use it here. As far as I'm concerned, the research and development in that area should be focused on it being used there. And what the West should be doing with its obscene amounts of wealth is like trying to make the most high-end efficient production possible. Not your small local scale, relatively efficient on a cheap budget kind of thing. Like that stuff's really important to kickstart those people and get them out of privation. But I think what we should be doing in the West is investing in a place for them to land. Like you need a two-pronged approach. You need to get the cheap technology in that'll get them up above the poverty line. And then at the same time in the Western world convert over to something that is like incredibly efficient and green, even though it costs money. And then sort of drop in and go, right, we've got you above the minimum line, you're not starving, you kind of care about these things now. We're going to help bring you up even further with the next stage. It needs to be staged up. And if you're smart about it, you can do that in a way where they can skip the stages of like coal plants, cough, cough, Germany. It's not an ideal situation. And there's better things that can be done and has been done for a long time. Which is one of the reasons why I still think fossil fuels are super important. Because I see them as that middle stage. It's like you use that kind of technology that you were talking about to get people out of, starving, freezing, and all kinds of horribleness. And then you drop them onto the most efficient fossil fuels possible, because there's some relatively good ones. And ideally, by the time they're at that stage, we in the West will be off them to a large degree. Obviously not completely, but to a large degree. And onto something truly next gen. Can't help but make the gamer comment. The next level. And then they can use that for a little bit, and then we can skip them up to the highest tech. Because I don't see them going from, composting methane systems to nuclear power. That's too big of a jump. There needs to be a middle gap. I think that's what fossil fuels should be. If we could reduce our demand on them and then give it to them so that they could then build up and then drop in, nuclear plants or whatever else we come up with, then that would be the way to go. But this comes back to our positive vision thing, because I think that was the last show that we did. It's like we could do amazing things if we lived in nations that were able to plan for the future. And I don't mean like central planning kind of crap, but at the same time, it's like, okay, maybe a little bit of that. Everything is a balance. You need some public works projects, but you also need to not be kneecapping industry at every chance possible.
Well, at the same time, protecting everyone else from tragedy of the commons type issues where the particular industry gets the profits of destroying a communal resource where everyone gets the costs.
Yeah, you don't want tragedy. I mean that's even the case with just individuals. Tragedy of the commons sucks. And you don't want any kind of bailing out businesses or socializing losses or anything like that. You don't really want the government involved in business at all, which is what I hate about the modern world. It's like, I used to be super ideological, like pure free market, anarchist almost, which was unbelievably stupid. That's beside the point. I think public works projects on a massive scale could be super beneficial to the world. Unbelievably beneficial to the world. And I think that that's actually the one great thing that you could take from the kind of socialist philosophy. Still hate using that word because that's not really what it is, but that's beside the point. If you could get that without all of the other crap mixed in, like the attempting to destroy all productivity ever, that would be really good, We want to fund public works and do this massive stuff, and we want to help the poor and all of that. But by the way, you're not allowed to generate money. How the fuck are you going to pay for it then? Shut up. Greed's evil. Except when I want it. Then it's good. Give me your money.
One thing I keep coming back to on these sort of issues is I'm glad I'm not in charge of it, because I repeatedly realised I wouldn't know what I was doing.
What do you think they do? This is something I was listening to in a conversation. It wasn't that same podcast, it was a different one. I was like, this guy goes to Washington and he's meeting, he's blown away. He's like, wow, these people around the world. And then he speaks to them and he's like, oh, they're all stupid. I thought I'd come here and meet towering intellects and be impressed and amazed with everyone. He's speaking to people and he's like, fuck, we're run by idiots. We are so screwed. And I genuinely believe that's the case. I genuinely do. It's like, I think the average person can run a nation better than anyone in politics. Just off the bat. As long as you had someone next to them who could ask them reasonable questions and not lead them, and then they gave reasonable answers, which I think most people would. Do great.
Yeah.
Do absolutely. Not that I'm saying the world. That would be horrifying and I'd definitely not want to, but we're not exactly ruled by competent people, and it's getting rather frustrating.
The most
where are
important
all the
thing to my mind is okay,
we'll run away.
I don't know what I'm doing. Ask people questions to find the way to do things, and
that's who you want in power, to be honest. Because anyone who's like, I know what I'm doing, I have a plan, it's like, okay, you're tyrant off the bat. You're all going to do what I say. Oh, but that's not going to work. Shut up. You don't want that as a leader.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're good negotiator. You know, you Secretary of State or whatever, but not as the figurehead. Fuck no. I want someone who's going to be up there and go like, you know, half the country cares about this thing. Actually, I meant to do a wee series on this way back. I forgot about that. I don't understand why we don't have a moderate candidate. I feel like they could win off the bat. I wanted to do this wee thing of like, okay, so this next election comes up in our country. We got National, ACT, and Labour. And, you know, it's whatever topic, pick a topic, environment or whatever. And, you know, National's yelling at Labour about, hey, you do this bad thing and we're going to do this good thing. And then Labour's doing the same thing. And I feel like all you would need is the third party candidate who's in the centre of the stage to just like go look at them both and go like, you're both children yelling at the other one. It's like, you represent half the country. You represent half the country. Here's a shocking idea. We make everyone happy. You know, instead of having this like bickering match about who's the worst person and who's completely saintly, how about we like have a conversation and actually come up with a plan where everyone is mostly happy? Wouldn't that be a great idea?
Yeah, I hope
like just,
the inbuilt political divides don't scupper that.
I would love someone to be on a national stage and just call them out for the pathetic children that they are. It's like, okay, you guys can yell at each other all you like, but we actually need an adult in the room who's able to talk to someone they disagree with and negotiate a solution. And you're not. You think you're 100% right and they're 100% wrong. And you're wrong. That's not the case. And it will never be the case. And the fact that you're claiming it is rather terrifying. You should really stop.
Yeah, starting the debate from a position of, I know I don't have the right answer. I want to make something that works. It's like, as opposed to, this is the solution I am voting or proposing and such and such.
You offer a list of probably terrible policies, and so do you. And they're all contradictory, and there's positives and negatives to either side, and you're asking the people to choose which form of hell they want. Like, I'm going to stand here and say, I have no policy whatsoever. I am here to represent you. And here's a genius idea. I actually do that, you know, because rather than like one half of you, or one half of you, and the other one hates me, how about we make a way so that like the farmers and the people that are concerned about climate change are both happy? That'd be really cool, you know, so that like the cities aren't at war with the countryside.
Yeah, it's always like you go in, look at all the national policies, you look at all the Labour policies. Oh yeah, yeah. Some of that. Yeah. Does this work?
Yeah, both of you can be my VPs. We can sit down and actually have a fucking conversation. That'd be amazing. You're standing up here like argue, who's better, who's going to win. It's like, how about we negotiate? Seeing as you represent half the country, and so do you, and we're trying to elect one person to lead the country, I don't think it should be either of you. Like, doesn't that seem pretty clear? It's like, you represent half the people, and we need to elect one person to rule over all the people. It sure shouldn't be either of you. It should be someone above you who makes you sit down like big boys and girls and negotiate. You know?
It's almost like you...
No drinking, no fighting, no hitting. We're going to take away all your phones and your cookies until you make nice.
Sounds like a monarchy. Where the one who orchestrates the discussion doesn't actually make the decision, but just makes the discussion work. And it's like, okay, we're not leaving the room, or we're not recessing until you agree on something.
This is my pure point. It's like politicians are like children. It's Lord of the Flies court. And there's not an adult in the room who's going to be like, you know, there are two sides to every issue. And maybe we should have a compromise so that, everyone gets something that they want and half the country doesn't want to kill the other half over every issue that there is. We stand up here and we go, oh, political divides are so terrible and everyone's hating each other and society's falling apart. It's like, maybe you two can't fucking talk to each other politely. It'd be really good if you make a point and the other person goes, that's a good point. I have this concern, but maybe we could negotiate it, like adults that you're supposed to be. That's the point of being a representative for half the country, is that you represent their interests and then do the negotiation. Because, that's what happened before we televised this, like it's a winner-take-all game show.
It would be a little bit entertaining to have a umpire in the middle who exacts some small but sweet penalty from each side. Like, okay, you lose $5 or something, or that might not be it, but it's like, okay, you both have a pile of marshmallows in front of you. Every time you spout a logical fallacy or something, you'll lose a marshmallow. Let's see who has the most marshmallows at the end of the night. And then it's like straw manning and steel manning. It's like
so condescending. Rather than the debate host or whatever jumping down their throat, just have have it be, what do you call it, moderators?
Yeah.
Just have them be so exhausted with them, like they're pathetic children. Like every time one of them does a steel man, instead of going like, no, Mr. President, you can't, you just have the person mute both the microphones and just go, that is a straw man argument. We're here to negotiate in good faith. Mr. Leader of the free world, could you not be such a fuckwit, please? Back to the conversation.
We would need someone who was a bit of an apolitical comedian to do that.
Yeah, someone who's an adult.
Yeah.
We need an adult in the room of the House of Representatives that's supposed to run the fucking country. And I don't think there's anyone there at all. I mean, maybe the ACT guy, but he's got his own problems. So can't do that. I mean, he's calling out National for their issues as well as Labour, so that's better than nothing. And I feel like he's got an opportunity to do something like this, but it's not like he's going to hit the mark. He's kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, but it seems like all the competent adults in the room want nothing to do with actually helping the vast amount of people on the world stage. Maybe they're just all being blocked from getting there with the cronyism. Maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe they've all just run off to, some small town in the middle of nowhere or the bush or something because they can't deal with the bullshit that the lunatics running the asylum have put in place.
There was a idea that I came up with. You know how there's the portion of society, the highly disagreeable portion of society who won't do what anyone tells them. But there are also the people who, when they decide to do a thing, the thing gets done.
So it's conscientiousness, yeah.
Well, not so much... I wasn't taking it from that perspective. I was taking it from, disagreeable and determined. When they decide to make a thing happen...
Right, so the combination of both.
Yeah. So... I was thinking that it's a negative feedback loop on the swings of society because there's, in terms of more tyrannical or more chaotic. So if it gets too tyrannical, then they say up yours to the tyranny. And if it gets chaotic, then they go and impose their own order on the chaos. And in the sense, the tyranny is a form of chaos being imposed. So they're the people who stop the pendulum swinging too far out in one direction because they'll go do a thing.
They're most sensitive to it.
Yeah.
So this is one thing that I definitely realised. It's everyone is sensitive to that pendulum. Everyone. It's just how much. I've been personally in my life to everyone I've known ringing the bell since I was like 12. Second I got onto YouTube and started realizing what the fuck's going on, I was like, oh my god, this needs to stop. And it was still in the shadows then. It wasn't public like it is now. It wasn't I don't mean the knowledge about it, I mean like brazen. A lot of it was still like with the mask on, and now it's just like, no, we're just bold faced doing it.
People
But one
lose
thing that
faith
really,
in it and then it'll go away. As in
the thing
the
that really does give me hope, it's like, okay, yeah, there's the ideological supporters of the totalitarian systems. You know, that's what the atheists always do. But at the same time, it's like most people, when you talk to them, they know the feeling of, we're getting a bit too tyrannical. Something's going on. This needs to like turn around a bit. I think almost everyone has that feeling.
yeah.
If they're willing to speak about it, that's what they say. And yeah, there's your zealots. There always is, but
It's interesting to hear. Oh, there was a point that Jordan Peterson was making to Joe Rogan about if you go out on your street, what's your experience? As in comparing that with the internet. Like, you go on the internet and there is screaming and shouting and all the controversy and all the he's a terrible racist, misogynistic blah. And then you go out on the street and, oh, I know you. You're this person or whatever, and such. People are happy to see you. And like Jordan Peterson talking about his experience like that, go out on the street and he's politely stopped on the street to be thanked for his for things he's done several times a day in any city in the world, and it's kind of like, oh, that's a thing. And you compare that with the internet, it's like, yeah, the internet ain't real. It's like,
yeah. But the thing that scares me is that I do see it in real life.
Okay, yep.
Like, I'm not sure why this is, but my wife has like no filter with this stuff, which is kind of funny.
As in to
she was like,
or to
like she was raised with not really the ability to think or speak for herself. And then I sort of like educated her on a whole bunch of stuff and told her about the world. And now she's like, you know, she'll meet someone and she'll start up a conversation that I would not fucking dare to start. Like things that it's like, wow, I would hesitate to say that to mates on Discord. And she's like, yeah, I'll talk about this to the mums of the PTA group or whatever the fuck it is. But one of the things that I find interesting is like your statement of it doesn't happen in the world. Yeah, my phone died.
Yes.
It does. I need to just get like a longer cable that fits up there or whatever. Although this looks alright, I suppose. I'll do this.
Yeah, that works.
It works, yeah. So I was telling the story about, right, in real life, you only just sent your kid to school. So I don't know if you've encountered stuff like this, but like we have encountered in a lot of different places the ideology, the one that's got the tyrannical grip on our society, like, you know, in a preschool, and to a certain extent in and even in the play centre. It's like these are regulated places. Government's telling them how to run their mum group for kids playing as a play centre. Like not a preschool, a play centre. Government tells them how to do it. And they're required to say things they don't believe. And it's like we ran into that trying to send it to preschool, and we made the point of like, we don't want this to be taught to our kid. And they were like, we don't have a choice. It's going to be taught. It's like, well, she's not going there. And, you know, individuals who, they don't get bent out of shape. I haven't had anyone, like, go psycho like they do on the internet. But I've certainly had people put forth the ideology. And it's clear that it's a requirement of their position and their job. We've had people make, like, passive-aggressive statements about it without, you know, going any further than that. When I was still at university, I had someone who was actually flew off the handle about it, which was quite funny. It's amazing to me how much I've calmed down. Like before you knew me, I didn't have a filter. And when I encountered people like that, I went after them. I went after them hard. And I kind of wish I still could do that. But for some reason, I think I've lost it.
Mm.
I can get too anxious about it or whatever now. But it's like I used to tear people to shreds all the time for shit like that. And it was like my greatest joy. And now I can't do it because I don't care about them. Which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. We were talking before we started re-recording about where we were the last time, and maybe it's better for you to summarize. You were talking about the monotheism versus polytheism.
Well,
And yeah, no.
summarize is not the word I would use for that topic. But
Okay.
yeah.
I have an idea. We barely skirted, well, we skirted around that one, and we have been for quite a while, and you seem pretty keen to talk about it.
I'm keen
we
but
can do this.
scared of the...
I still feel woefully undereducated to even brush. Like, I think a lot of the points that I would make on that would be not my words, which I'm concerned about. But I think there's some things that I could put to it with value now, which I got from Neumann's book, the Origin and History of Consciousness, which is why I stopped recording in December, is that I read that book, and for like a month or more, it's like, fuck, I don't know anything about anything, and I shouldn't be speaking at all. It scared the shit out of me, that book. Is that the right way to say it? I don't know. It just...
But speaking is thinking. And if we don't speak it, then we're not thinking it out. We need to be able to say it wrong.
That's like my whole thing. But it's like I never even considered any of that. And then to read a book that just lays it all out at this like world-shattering way of viewing everything. Just so different.
Is this one of the books that lays out a sort of progression of states of consciousness from prehistory through to the present and then projecting out to the future?
Yes, but it is in the vein of Jungian psychoanalysis. It's not just like, it's all embedded in the language and the philosophy of that scientific discipline, stretched all the way back to before consciousness existed for human beings. And a step-by-step process of how we developed and the myths that accompanied that. And that, to my mind, links in when I say things like the mother worship, the nature worship is the worship of chaos and unconsciousness. It's like that's where I get that from. When I say things like polytheism is the worship of the spirit that enforces order, not tyrannical. That's also where I get it from. The development of these ideas links in with the development of the ego consciousness out of the unconsciousness.
I had heard monotheism versus polytheism described as unifying the consciousness versus diversifying it. Possibly the wrong term, but the idea of yourself is made up of many parts, and polytheism is breaking those up and sort of dealing with them individually. Monotheism is bringing them into a unity.
Yes, it is organizing them into a psychological structure. Under the it's making a hierarchy out of them.
I think that
and okay, no, let's not start this. Let's not start it now. Like we could. And I need to go eat dinner. Wife's a bit grumpy that I came in to finish this off after my phone died. So we need to go do that. So that's more important.
Yeah, we'll have to have another conversation about it because there's...
Yeah, we can do that next Friday.
Yeah. It's like...
I think we need to work on timing and figure out how that'll work so that we can get like the most amount of time possible. I might be able to squeeze out 2 hours, which we seem to have done today almost. shift around some stuff in personal life outside of it. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. Well, should we finish this
wanna
up and then talk about
Yeah, I want to
logistics
go
for a
back.
minute?
Yeah, we can just message about that. Because I want to go eat dinner. I'm hungry.
Uh, I'll finish up recording then, and that could be a nice
Yeah.
round out to the rest of it. And yeah, till next
Well,
time.
hopefully we can do it next week and like continue to do it. That'd be good.
Yep.
Yeah. Either way, catch you around, mate.
Yep. Bye.